Movie review. It's the 1960 movie, The Criminal. And The Criminal was directed by Joseph Losey. And he's an American director. But this was a early B movie that he shot. He went on to greater and bigger things. And it starred Stanley Baker as Johnny Banyan, sort of self-confessed criminal type. Other protagonists involved in this are Sam Wanamaga as a fellow inmate. He plays Mike Carter. And the ladies, Margaret Beat Said plays Baker's new girlfriend Suzanne, and Jill Bennett plays Maggie, one of his old flames. They both have significant supporting roles. There are a host of other British actors that cropped up in many other films after this. Tom Bell, notable as Flynn. We have Patrick Wymark as Sol, and Kenneth Cope, who was in Randall and Hotwork, deceased, as Kelly. He also spent some time on Coronation Street. Okay, so what have we got? The opening scene, there's a poker game taking place. It's inside a prison. Obviously, it's a pretty easygoing atmosphere. Right at the centre is Johnny Banyan, Stanley Baker. And word gets to the group that there's a new arrival called Kelly, and this creates quite an excited atmosphere. And as he arrives and is checked in by the screws, there's a chant of Kelly's a wrong'un and a song to greet him, and we also get Johnny, played by Baker, meeting him with a whistle, which is symbolic of you getting nicked. This captures the mood of prison life, the inmates and the screws, and a big part of this movie really is creating real situations, real life scenarios. None of the Hollywood gloss here. Anyway, Banyan is getting ready for his release shortly after spending a number of years inside. He's a thief and a robber, and we catch him. He's a bit of a daddy in this criminal hierarchy within the prison, and he's already looking forward to the next job that he's going to carry out once he's out, and he's going through some minor details with a number of those inside, and we soon realise that the arrival of Kelly has forced him to consider some retribution, and Johnny has a number of fellow inmates who look up to him as the daddy, and he immediately sets out to finger Kelly, and one of his disciples carries out the deadly deed, or the dirty deed, and Kelly's beaten to a pretty horrible pulp. At the same time, there's a deafening noise by all the other inmates, and one of the inmates literally has a fit to create distractions so that the screws are unable to rescue Kelly. So we get a very clear picture of life in prison. Once he's out, he returns to a sort of semi-glamorous life of being a famous criminal. He has a party to celebrate his release. He then meets Suzanne, and he, although is not exactly sort of desperate for affection, following a an altercation with his ex, Jill Bennett, he then ends up in his flat with Suzanne, and this begins a intimate relationship. For its time, there's a scene which is quite sensual and quite well, let's say it's pretty sexy. We actually see her naked coming out of a bath, which was pretty risque for that time. We then follow the events which lead to the robbery, and him and his fellow cohorts hit a sort of a security van. But unfortunately, the bank notes have been tampered with, and as a result, Banyan gets nicked, and he ends up having to go back inside, and he's greeted as almost a sort of a king as his re-arrival, and we then witness once again the life within the walls of the prison, and the film then follows towards a plan to get Banyan transferred for the benefit of the protection of other inmates who he's out to get, and this is a sort of setup. And what then follows is that Banyan, who has buried the cash from the previous heist, has buried it in a middle of a field, is out to retrieve it, and he needs to escape his lengthy sentence, which he duly does. And then the movie follows a typical pattern of the bad guy trying to get hold of his dosh. He's been double crossed by one of his mates outside, who has managed to kidnap the girl and using it as leverage, and we then get the finale involving these two thieves who are at each other's heads, and of course the police trying to smooth it all at the end. In review, it's not a bad movie. Baker is very central to this movie. I like his delivery. He was up there with one of the best in this era, alongside Connery and Kane and others, and he really fits the bill, which was in contrast to another recent movie I reviewed where he was the policeman, although the characters are not too dissimilar. So get to have a look at it. It's called The Criminal, and it was released in 1960.